Hey everyone, welcome back to the How to Write a Book podcast. I'm excited for us to jump in with Michael Pickard, in very cool, very awesome, all around author. All the words were tumbling out just because I was so in awe of how much Pickard, was writing, but also just his devotion. Like it was his third career. But you will find out more about that inside the episode. A couple of updates from our side. So if you haven't seen it yet, we had the contest winners for Quill Hawk Publishing. I was delighted and honored to be chosen as a judge on the fiction side. That was so cool. But shout out to one of the judges. I don't think we're supposed to say who did what, but there was a judge who read all of the not samples, but all of the manuscripts inside the nonfiction category. And there were 8 books and we had 2 months to read. So shout out to you. Oh my goodness. I only had a few really. So I was like 8, that is awesome. That was so great. So, can't even, I love it. I love it. If you are new to the show, welcome. This is the How to Write a Book podcast. We focus a lot on inspiration and motivation for writers, especially as you face the blank page. Oh my gosh, y'all, it is the middle of April. Ugh, okay. So let's go ahead and dive in. And in case you are feeling like, should I write today? Can I write this book? I have so much to do. Even sitting down and writing your thoughts for 10 minutes, 9 minutes, maybe 7 minutes, that is going to get you even closer to that finished product. So I encourage you, remember that it's not about being perfect. It's not about being right. It's about getting your work out there because that's the calling that you have on your heart. All right, let's go ahead and dive in and learn about Michael Pickard. Thanks everyone and enjoy.
Welcome to the How to Write a Book podcast, the show that helps you plan, write, and publish your book, even if you're a beginner or just feel like one. Now, for your host, she's written over a dozen books and helps others bring their books to life. Here she is, Maciel.
All right, and welcome back to the How to Write a Book podcast. We are welcoming Michael Pickard. Hello, how are you today?
I'm terrific. Thank you very much for asking.
Definitely. I'm super thrilled to have you. You're a prolific author or writer. We had a little bit of an intro before this, and I'm really excited to dive into your history, why you do what you do, and of course your second or third retirement. Is that what you said?
2 retirements, yes.
Oh, amazing. Well, thank you so much, Michael. You have several books under your belt, but before we get into that, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience?
Well, my name is Michael Pickard. I'm an accidental author, and I live in Illinois.
Awesome. I love that. Illinois. I've never been. Is it cold over there?
Last time I looked, it was -1 heading for -7.
Oh my gosh. I don't even know what that is. I'm in California, so I can't even fathom. My brain will say no. It says nope, don't know what that is. Well, thank you so much for being here today. We have some exciting news to share. I know that. But you are the author of several books, children's books, a detective series, and your latest book, Creative Deductions Home Run. I would love to start with that. Can you tell us a little bit about the first book in your series?
Certainly. So I've been a sci-fi guy all the way back from 1993. And I noticed that in the last several science fiction novels, I had protagonists who needed to figure things out. They weren't detectives. They weren't even the old person in the small town who figured out crimes. They were just people doing their job. But there were things going on around them that they needed to understand better. And as I noticed that pattern, I wondered if I had the chops to actually write a detective series where there was a police detective as the protagonist. And I was taking a walk with my wife, and I said, when you read detective stories, what's one aspect of detective books that you really enjoy? And she said, well, if the detective finds two different murders that seem unrelated, but he puts it together and they are related. She said, I really like that. And so that became my goal. I was going to write a novel about my detective, Nick Chasm, who works out of the Chicago Police Department, who gets a call from his 82-year-old mother, who says, my 80-year-old male companion was just murdered on the highway, and you have to come home to Eden Gorge and figure out who did it and throw them in jail. And that's where it starts.
Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah, that's definitely a grabber. I love that. That's a great hook. Now, I know we don't want to leave the spoilers too much to the end, but, why is your book special already? I would love for you to chat about that. What's coming down the pipeline for you?
Well, I got notified late December, early January that Creative Deductions Home Run was one of 3 finalists for the soon-to-be-famous Illinois Project contest. And it's for independently published books. It's run by a consortium of libraries. However many books are submitted, and they don't tell you how many, are judged. The top 3 bubble to the top, and one of mine did. And now it goes through a second round of judging, and late this month, I will know what the second round of judges thought of Home Run.
That's amazing. Congratulations ahead of time. I mean, that is, I think you said this before, this is the pinnacle of your career right now.
Right now, I'm not going to stop there, but
yeah.
But yes, because it shows recognition of my craft, and that's really important for me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people of this show, myself included, writers all around the world know that writing a book, it can be hard, laborious work. It takes a lot. It's not just, one and go. You have multiple levels going at you, and it's craft. It's craft, exactly what you said. So congratulations over here from the How to Write a Book podcast. That is amazing. We're crossing our fingers for you. Here you go.
Well, thank you.
Definitely. So I would love to rewind. You've jumped into the detective series, but you also have some children's books. I'm curious, how did your process start? You talked a little bit about it as how you started to become a writer, but can you share with us where it began?
Sure. So there's actually 2 stories, how I began as a writer and why I was motivated to start looking at children's books. My daughter was 11 years old in 1993. She was going off to summer camp for the first time, and she knew other kids who'd already been. And she said, Daddy, I want you to write me every day. And I didn't want to write her mundane, boring drivel. I wanted something that she would enjoy getting, that would make her laugh. And as a parent, I wanted to embed in those stories some parental lessons, but stealth, so that they didn't hit her in the face. And so I sat down, no planning, at my Mac, and I typed in intentionally. It was a cold and stormy night, or dark and stormy night, because I know that's what you never do. And I continued that for about the first 3 chapters and then got tired of it. But I sent her 7 letters the first year, and then she went for 2 weeks for subsequent years, and so the number of chapters increased. And when she was all done, I had this massive work that people who I worked with, my family and friends, all knew I was writing to her, and they said, we want to read the story. So I burnt out a laser printer, making copies for them, and so I went very early in the process to a print-on-demand company named Ex Libris, and for a small fee, they put the book in a database, and they would print 1 copy if someone ordered one, and they would make a couple of bucks, and I'd make a few pennies. And so that's how I got started. The box of books showed up, and these were hardbacks back then. And I saw my name in gold on the spine. I saw my words in between the covers. I smelled the ink. I got goosebumps. And I was hooked. I had to keep writing.
I think that is really like the magical moment. You feel it, you see it, you smell it. I mean, how many of us don't smell books? Like, we go to bookstores and we smell books. I can only imagine the delight that you felt seeing your words and your name and smelling your print. That's the dream. That's the dream. Amazing. So then after that, what was your process like?
Well, I was still gainfully employed in my first career. So it was writing when I could. It was writing on lunch hours, maybe evenings or weekends, staying up late. And I made very slow progress because the first book was over a 5-year period. So, because I was only writing during the summer. So it took some effort, but I kept plodding away through my first and second careers, continued to write, started to join critique groups, which I found priceless, to help me understand what I was doing wrong. And, through a lot of trial and error, I started to get better. And, it was a fair trade because I was learning the craft of critique. And so I was giving back what I was getting from others.
That's a really good point. I love that you bring that up, the craft of critique. I would love to know, how did you come to that mindset, the craft of critique? Some people just say, critique, or they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to face feedback. What's your mentality then around it?
Well, in my second career, I worked for Apple.
Oh, cool.
And I worked on the retail sales floor, not a tech job, a sales job, although I never called myself a salesman, because I didn't like the idea of being a salesman. What I wanted to do was be a problem solver and let the customer decide if they wanted to open their purse or wallet. It was all customer choice. But one of the things that Apple teaches is something called fearless feedback. And it's a structured way for employees to talk to other employees about things that they see are going on, good things or opportunities. And I became pretty practiced at both getting and receiving fearless feedback. And so I took that learning plus the most important learning from Apple, which was how to be patient. With customers, you had to be patient. I knew a lot of tech. They knew no tech. And so I had to bring them along carefully. And those two skills, when applied to writing, was a pretty natural fit. I know that when I get feedback, it's my job to weed out the wheat from the chaff, figure out what I want to use and what I don't want to use. But when people give me feedback, it's always a thank you. When I give feedback, my mindset is singular. It is, what can I suggest that will make this story better? It is never about the author. It is never about the subject matter of the story. It's, can I advance this author's skills or insight into their work? And if you do that, then you can do it with a clean conscience.
Yeah, that's great. I love how you put the work first. And that's so important. It is about what's going to make the book better, what's going to make the writing piece better, because it's art. How do you make this art better? And, I'm curious, then it seems like you've had, many years with the critique cycle. What was your emotional kind of journey through it? And I know sometimes we receive feedback and we objectively we're like, of course this is going to make my story better, but it hurts our feelings sometimes nonetheless. How do you deal with that?
So I'm going to share a story. I haven't shared this a lot because it's a little painful. So I was in a small critique group, and the guy who ran it out of his home had a book published, and I think it was mainstream press. And so we would come in and share our chapters, and I was doing sci-fi, and I don't remember what genre he was doing. And we would each share a chapter, and maybe there were about 5 of us in the room. And the people enjoyed my sci-fi a little bit because there's some humor in it. It's a little wacky. And it's easy to become endeared to some of my sci-fi characters. And so they were just lapping it up, and they were enjoying it, and they'd smile and laugh and give me verbal pats on the back. And when it came to his stuff, he viewed their critique as being much more harsh and undeservedly harsh. And so in one of the meetings in his home, he blew up. And he just spouted venom at me. Wow. And I sat there for a while. And when he didn't stop, I just packed up my stuff and walked out of the house. And kind of walked on the sidewalk for a while. The other people came out. They tried to console me. I never went back. I don't think any of them went back. The strange thing was that when I got home, because of my training on finding those kernels, those nuggets of worthwhile information in feedback, no matter how it's delivered, I started to process what he said. And I tried to throw away all of the nasties. And there was one thing he said that actually struck home with me. And so I used that. I rescued it and added some things to the novel, which I think makes the novel better. So even after the harsh treatment, there was something of value that I could extract from that experience and use it to my advantage.
Wow. Wow. Well, first, I'm sorry that you went through that. I know that there are a lot of people that go through something similar. You know, they kind of go into a critique circle or, have a partner, and sometimes it doesn't turn out the way that maybe it should. But it sounds like it was a wonderful kind of lesson for your book. And it kind of goes back to what you were saying, which is that what's important for the book. I love that you said you rescued that tip. You went in and took out all the nasty stuff, but you rescued that tip to make your book better. You kept that in mind, not you or how you were feeling, and of course the pressure of that, but like what's going to make the book better. That's awesome. Wow. That's a super nugget of wisdom. Thank you for sharing that.
My pleasure.
Wow. And I hope everyone takes that away too. Everyone who's watching and listening, when we face those critiques and sometimes, maybe they're not what we're expecting, rescue what's going to work for your book. Wow. So, I also wanted to ask you then, what is your kind of editing process like? What's your creation process like? It seems like you have a lot of experience, especially with all the books that you've produced and the story that you said that you produced as well. What's your entire process like?
So I had to give a lecture on this a couple of years ago.
Oh, cool.
And I rescued the slide so I wouldn't have to recreate it. So my process end to end takes just about 2 years. It starts with what I call ideation. It's coming up with the idea. I have a very creative mind, so ideas are not the problem. It's finding one that engages both my head and my heart. Because the story doesn't show up as a book for 2 years, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of time and effort. And if you don't hold the story dear in your heart, you're not going to follow through. So having it in your mind perfectly clear to write it down as a final draft isn't enough. You really have to feel it. So I make sure that it's a story that I feel the need to tell. I start out as a planner, and so I do deep character backgrounds. I do research on the places where things are going to happen. Either I go there if it's close, or I use Google Earth or Google Street View to put myself in those places. So I get a feel for the place, because I want the descriptions to be accurate. If there's something that's true, I want it to be true in my book. If I'm doing sci-fi, I may bend science at the edges. But if they're in Las Vegas, I want it to be Las Vegas. And if someone's been to Las Vegas, they will recognize things. And that adds credibility to my process. Once I have a spreadsheet with all of the scenes, hopefully in chronological order, I experience NaNoWriMo. And that's my opportunity to dump the story as fast as I can out of my head. And the reason I can do it, and I've been successful, I think, 9 years in a row, is because I've already answered the questions that would stall me out during November. I know where it is. I know these characters. I can answer questions if thrown question to one of my fictitious characters. I know how they'll respond. I have pictures of the building so I can describe them. So nothing's going to get in the way of the dumping process. That takes up November. In December, I leave what I call my mountain of words, and that's trademark, idle. I just let it sit there and I don't touch it. That gives me emotional distance from the work. On January 1st, as my New Year's gift to myself, I read through the mountain of words and I figure out what I have. And maybe most importantly, I figure out what I don't have. What in the process of dumping, what did I miss? And I will note what things are missing, and either sketch them out as just an outline, or if dialogue comes to me, because I'm very good with dialogue, I will write some dialogue for it. That dumping process is the point in time where I am doing pantsing. So I have a description of a place and a scene, and something's going to happen, and I know all those, but I don't know how it's going to happen. And so I will pants the dialogue, and then I will come back and add in descriptions and actions and speech modifiers and things like that. Once I have molded the mountain of words into scenes and then chapters, I go to my first critique group. They see about a chapter a week, and they tell me what I did wrong or what I missed. And then I do an edit. I review it with my contributing editor, who shows me more things that I missed or opportunities I have. And then there's a second critique group that accepts about 7,000 words a month. And so I can get 2 or 3 chapters a month with them. After they have seen it and given me feedback, then I do at least 1 or 2 final edits, because people miss things. And then I recruit a first team of beta readers, and then another edit, then a second team of beta readers, an edit, and then it's released.
Wow, that's great. I mean, that's like, I think you have down like what is an ideal planning, projecting, and launching strategy that you have just to get eyes on it. That's amazing. Now, did you kind of come up with that on your own, or did you like absorb this information over time? Because that's a really good cycle of feedback.
So I figured this out by iterating through the process for over half of the books in my catalog. And each time I do a spreadsheet for NaNoWriMo, it's a little different because it's a little better and I can manage things a little differently. And it turns out that I have 2 very capable critique groups. that are willing to take the time with my work. The very first disclaimer I have to make is my process doesn't necessarily apply to everybody.
Yeah.
But for everyone I meet, every author has their process. Mm-hmm. What I hope by sharing that snippet or run through is that there may be something in my process that someone goes, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Maybe I'll try that. So I don't expect anyone will wholesale do it the way I do it, because that is probably a force fit. But if there's something in there that someone can take advantage of, well, then more power to them.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I actually love about this show is that we have people on here and they all have different processes. Everyone has a different process. It's amazing. And it's exactly why we have amazing speakers like you on the show, because someone's going to be like, oh, I didn't think about doing that, or oh, I should do that, or the Google Sheet, or the second team of beta readers. And it's awesome, because there are so many things that, even as I coach writers and do the show, I learn all the time. So, it's super cool and it's fun. It's fun to be like, I should try that. I want to do that.
I do want to come back to a question you asked earlier, which was my children's books.
Yeah.
It was never my intention to write a children's book, but a couple of things happened. I got a phone call from, at that point, my 9-year-old grandson, who said, I want you to write a book. I said, okay. He said, and the book is called The Boy Who Sneezed Money. Now, that's a great title. So I said, well, besides the title and the fact that the boy's going to have to sneeze money, what else has to go on in this book? And he said, he has to sneeze enough money to buy an iPhone. So there was no hidden agenda. He knew what he wanted. And so it was a series of chapters I sent to my daughter. She read him the chapters. Now he can read them himself. And it's a booklet. It's not thick enough to put a spine on. And he enjoyed it. Thanked me for writing it. And I didn't want to throw it away. So I found some clip art for a cover, and I put it out as an ebook on Amazon. And it's 99 cents, which is the cheapest price Amazon will allow you to put on an ebook. And all of the profits from that ebook go to Lucas. And so when someone buys one, I show up at his house with an envelope of coins, and I tell him those are his profits. When he got money for the book, he said, gee, Pa, will you write another book? But I want it longer. And I said, okay, why do you want it longer? And he said, so we can charge more for it. So
smart.
Oh, yeah. He knows what he wants, and it costs money. So there is a Kindle Vella on Amazon called the Midnights, where Knights is spelled like Knights of the Round Table. And the plot is his. 3 middle grade students who get special powers, and when you read the book, you learn whether they're going to use those powers for good or evil. And he was much more involved in that book in terms of editing and plot, and so he's co-author on that book, maybe the only 10-year-old co-author on Amazon.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's sweet. I love that. So everyone here, we all need to get a copy of The Boy Who Sneezed Money and The Midnights.
The Midnights.
That's awesome. He is already a very savvy business person. Look at that author go. That's awesome. All right. Well, I was going to ask you another question, but actually I got totally derailed by your very, very smart grandson. I'm curious. Does he ask for a third book, or is he pondering the next one?
So I asked him if he wanted a sequel to Midnight's, and he's thinking about it. But I didn't want it to be just a repeat of the three boys getting into trouble. So as far as he's gotten is he wants to add a fourth student who has a different power and is the nemesis, which I think could be an interesting story.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that.
But he hasn't taken it any further than that. And given that I'm working on 4 novels at the same time, I'm not pushing him for more details.
Let him sit on that. Let the plot bunnies come to him.
Yeah.
And I was curious, you mentioned something. You mentioned that you do a lot of extensive planning, before you sit down. And you mentioned the use of a Google Sheet. I was just wondering, do you use a Google Sheet for your planning? Where do you keep all your notes?
So I have looked at and even sampled some of those writing tools that are popular in the market. And what I decided was that they didn't fit my personality. So do you know what the most powerful word in the English language is?
Is it no or yes?
The most powerful word in the English language is control.
Oh.
Because if you have it, you have it. And if you don't, you don't.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so my problem with all of these tools was that you put lots of information in, and it would store it away in some secret place.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wanted to get it out, you have to go back to the tool on bent knee and say, can I please have back what I put in? So what I do simply is I create a series of folders and folders and folders. There's one folder that has the name of the novel. There's a series of folders with chapters at different statuses, because in my process there's raw, there's after first critique, there's after my contributing editor, there's after second critique, and I keep all those copies because they're small files. If it takes place in Las Vegas, there's a Las Vegas folder. In one of my novels, Nick Volume 2, the one that's in beta readers now, there's a place called the Neon Museum in Las Vegas. And it's old signs from hotels and gambling halls that are all on this empty field, all laid out with a path through them. Some of them are stored with lights and some not. And so I have a folder called Neon Museum in my Las Vegas folder with all the photos and links. And someone from the place dictated to me what the path would be. They didn't have a map. What the path would be if I walked in, what would I see on my left? What would I see on my right? Probably took 20 minutes for him to describe it. And I took notes, and that went into the folder. So I organize it the way my brain works, and then when I want to find something, I find it easily because it's the way my brain works.
That's something, I do something a little bit similar. I have a Google Drive because I want to access it from every, if I'm on my phone or I'm on my laptop, I don't have Wi-Fi, and I can do the offline access, but I have first stage, second stage, third stage, and then sub-contents. So that's cool. And you're right. Now you know exactly where everything is. And so you have the different rounds. How do you know when your book is done? Is it a feeling, or is it the quantity of rounds? How do you approach that and say done?
So one part of the answer is after the second round of beta readers and I've incorporated their edits, that's one part of the flag that says I'm done. The other part is someone wise on a YouTube video. I asked them, how do you know when to stop editing? And her answer was, when you're changing words just to change words. And I went, okay, I can recognize that. And so I will be careful after the second round of beta readers. Is this something that is important, or am I just changing a word because I feel like I need to change something? And at that point, I'm ready to let it go.
That reminds me of a quote. Man, I wish I had it on hand. But there's an author, I'm pretty sure it's an older author, who said that he was done with the draft when he would be at the stage where he would take commas out and then put the commas back in. And then that's when he knew he was done. Like, that was it. It kind of reminds me of that similar thing. Like, hey, am I really doing anything here? We're good.
Yes.
That's a great point. I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Now, we are actually getting really close to the end of our time here. And I love how kind of methodical you are, and also your experience that you're bringing to the craft, that is writing. Before we begin to close out, are there any lessons you've learned that you would love to share with the audience?
Well, I think you have to take the risk of being open to feedback, because that is a risk. If you find that the people in your critique group or circle are talking more about you than they are about the work, exit that group quickly, because it's only going to damage your self-image and not help you in writing. I've been very lucky that, except for that one incident, I've had people who were of the right intention to help me get the words to be better, for the stories to be better. But you have to take that risk, so be willing to take the risk. And I don't know if this will help anybody, but I get a lot of my great ideas in hot showers, because the warm water, I don't think about anything at the moment, and then I put my mind to work thinking about a current story. I've been able, in the last hour of sleep, when you're kind of dozing and looking at the clock, to task my brain to work on a piece of story. And so through dreams and hot showers, I have a whiteboard in my bathroom, an erasable whiteboard. And when I got out of the shower, instead of running into my office and soaking my chair and writing stuff down, I scribble stuff on the whiteboard, take a photo of it with my phone, and then bring that to the computer and type in my notes. So hot showers do it for me.
I love that. Actually, I am also a hot shower person. I will totally drift. I'm just like, here I am. We're relaxing. We're going into Narnia, into Middle Earth, all these different things. So I totally know what you mean. And when can we expect your next book?
So Creative Deductions, Double Play, should be out in April-ish, about a year after Home Run came out. Don't have a date yet, a little too early for that. And then the third book in the series, called Strike Three, all baseball themed, because Nick is a baseball fan, will be out a year after that. So that's in the pipeline. The book that I dumped out of my head in November is called Aliens of Mediocre Intelligence. So I'm going back to sci-fi. That is a political sci-fi story, and that will probably follow the year after. And no, I have not figured out what I'm going to write in NaNoWriMo this year.
I love that you're already planning for NaNoWriMo. It's January, and you're like, what's in NaNoWriMo? I love that. I start planning for Nano in October. So you are months ahead of me. Now, of course, what I always love to do is I want to ask you, where can the audience find you and find your work?
So finding my work is pretty simple. There's an author page. Instead of giving you a really long URL, I have a shortcut to it. It is www.gerfnit, spelled GERFNIT.com. And that, if you type that in, that will take you to my Amazon author page. You can see my entire catalog, except for that Kindle Vella, which is hidden off on the side. If people want to reach out to me, I like getting email, even though I delete most of the garbage email. But if people want to write to me, the email address would be author@griffnet.com. And I will do my best to answer their emails.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Michael. This has been great. I love hearing your experience. I loved hearing, how you approach your writing. All great tips, and I think that a lot of the audience is going to find some helpful motivation here. From the How to Write a Book podcast, I want to say thank you. This has been Michael Pickard of several books, including The Boy Who Sneezed Money, which I'm looking forward to, and make sure you do buy that one so that your grandson can continue on to book 3. Thank you so much, Michael, for being here. We really appreciate it.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. And that's a wrap for today's episode of the How to Write a Book podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoyed the conversation. If you want to keep up with me and my work, check out the website, blackheartedstudios.com. That's www.blackheartedstudios.com. And follow me on Instagram @Massiel Writes. That's @MASSIEL Writes. As a book coach and publisher, I'm passionate about helping aspiring authors bring their stories to life. So if you've been dreaming of writing a book and don't know where to start, head to my website and let's chat. You get a free 30 minutes on me. Thanks again for listening, and don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks.